What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ready Gold Standard podcast. As always, I am joined by my co-hosts Matt Llewellyn and Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We got a great show for you guys planned this evening, so we are thankful that you guys are tuning in. If you are tuning in on X, make sure you hit like and repost the stream. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe to both channels. That's 49ers Hive and Nothing But Niners. No matter where you're watching from, we promise to bring you some great content. Now that I got that out of the way, let me toss over to my panel. Matt, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, Zach. Went to a Padres game today with the wifey and the daughter. Just getting back. So it was a good day overall. Can't complain, man. Ready to dive into some 49ers football.
Awesome. Mike, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. Fun day with the family. Got to hang out with my dad and his wife and their family over there. Good food, good laughs, some good cornhole throwing, man. You guys play cornhole?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at that. So I just want. All right, we got something to do next time we get together. All right.
It's funny you say that because literally yesterday we had my 30th birthday party at my mom's and Ashley got this table cornhole set, and it's like a mini one that you put on a table and you could play. And
snap.
She just got it as an afterthought, and it ended up being like the life of the party for the first few hours. Everybody wanted to play table cornhole, so it was fun. I hadn't played it in years.
And happy belated birthday, right?
It's technically Tuesday, so belated celebration, but yeah, it's actually Tuesday.
Oh,
coming up. Thank you, though.
Happy
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm rocking the new shirt from Ashley. By the way, YouTube might not like that, so maybe I shouldn't show that off. But we got a great show planned for you guys tonight. We'll be going over OTAs. We'll be looking forward to the season a little bit, but most importantly, we're going to talk about looking back, and we're going to look back at the 49ers draft classes under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and see where they are so far. Did they develop into a George Kittle? Did they flame out into a Reuben Foster? Sorry, I kind of had to. And how they are, how the 49ers have done just historically since taking over, how John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, I should say, have done historically since taking over the 49ers organization in 2017. Also, maybe if we have time, we'd like to fit in who the 49ers' current rival is. Is it the Rams still? Is it the Lions? Is it the Packers? Since there's a lot of talking happening between these players, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be a great show either way. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's get started right away without further ado with the 2017 draft class. And I have this here courtesy of Pro Football Reference. Infamously, the first overall pick by the 49ers that year, which was third after trading back from 2 with Chicago. Solomon Thomas, and then, if I remember correctly, they traded back up into the first round to take Reuben Foster.
Yep.
And then Ahkello Witherspoon in the third round, C.J. Beathard in the third round. Sorry, I didn't realize you guys weren't on stream. Let me change this here. There we go. Joe Williams in the fourth round, who Kyle Shanahan reportedly slammed his fist on the table for. George Kittle in the fifth. Trent Taylor in the fifth, DJ Jones in the sixth, Peter Tamopinu in the sixth as well, and Adrian Colbert in the seventh. Some names stand out there for good and bad reasons. Matt, why don't we start with you? What's the biggest standout for you on this?
I mean, it's clearly George Kittle. You know, this will be the draft that everybody will hammer on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan for not drafting Patrick Mahomes. Looking hindsight 2020 when, you know, I don't think anybody projected Patrick Mahomes to be as good as he is. And remember that Kyle Shanahan and company were hired 2 weeks before the combine. So, you know, it's hard to hitch your wagon with the worst roster in the NFL to a quarterback that you've done almost zero research on. This draft, by and large, is probably the 49ers' worst. I guess you can count Trent Taylor as still technically being on the team since he's come back this year, although I doubt he makes the 53 with as deep as they are at wide receiver. But outside of George Kittle, this is a very forgettable draft. None of these players are still on the 49ers, like I said, other than Trent Taylor. Just that's what happens when you have to slap things together at the last moment. So you're trying to fill holes. Again, worst roster in the NFL, clearly the worst roster in the NFL from the year before, and short time, just bad draft.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Mike, why don't you go ahead? What are your thoughts on this first draft class by Lynch and Shanny?
It's really tough to kind of grade this because this team needed literally everything. I don't know if you guys remember when they came in, they just ripped this thing apart. They signed any free agent that had any familiarity with the systems on offense and defense. And it was just like, hey, let's build this thing from the ground up, evaluate the talent, and then start churning guys in and out. Like, let's just get the rotation going. So it's hard to kind of grade them on this. I do remember hating the Solomon Thomas pick. I remember like a couple of days before, everyone's like, oh, John Lynch is going to draft a kid from the college that he went to in Stanford. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Like, this guy doesn't fit any type of system that we're running here. Like, blah, blah, blah. And they did it. It was terrible. One of my favorite drafts, but I remember just being very, very disappointed with how this whole thing played out. Akella Witherspoon still in the NFL, Solomon Thomas still in the NFL, George Kittle still in the NFL, and DJ Jones still in the NFL. Adrian Colbert has had his stints in and out, but they're giving him 6 years, which makes it sound like him and Trent like just missed 1 year. I didn't know Colbert was still active in the NFL. Did you guys know that?
I do, only because I follow him on Instagram, and I just saw him post. I want to say with the Bears. Could be wrong.
Okay.
But that's the only reason why I know.
Cool.
Other than that, I wouldn't know that.
So that's all I got on it. Very forgettable draft, and we learned to not trust Kyle standing or pounding on the table, whatever the phrase was for that Joe Williams thing. It was like, all right, it's over for that. Never again. Let's learn early.
Agreed. And this was the draft. Of course, Matt brought it up. Solomon Thomas, oh my God, how could you pass over? If everybody just remembers, the whole consensus was Kirk was Kyle's preferred choice. He would rather have waited for Kirk to become a free agent when he leaves Washington, which ultimately he did. It's not like Kyle was crazy into believing that Kirk Cousins was going to stay in Washington or wasn't going to stay in Washington. Like he was under the firm belief that he would even be able to get him. Solomon Thomas, unfortunately, as it is now sitting here, May 26 in 2024, was viewed as the safe pick, the, higher upside, lower risk player, safe as pick as possible. And like both of you guys said, with so little time to review, they just probably felt like, okay, this is fine with us. We get a cornerstone defensive lineman and we'll move forward from there. They also traded back to draft Reuben Foster, who did look like a hell of a linebacker. It looked like a star linebacker. And unfortunately, that did not pan out. Not due to talent, because he had all the talent in the world, but other, circumstances kept him from being a star linebacker in the NFL. But yeah, George Kittle obviously turned into arguably the best tight end, if not the second best tight end since he's been drafted. DJ Jones has gotten a couple of, mega contracts or large contracts since being in the NFL. He's a quality starter as well. Peter Tampapinu definitely had some potential there and did look like he was going to latch on. Unfortunately, did not make it. CJ Beathard's still in the league. Witherspoon's still in the league. So there's some names there that, for being their first draft, they did an all right job, in my opinion. Any final thoughts before I move on to the 2018 draft class?
I think it's important to note that, as Mike said, a lot of these guys are still in the NFL. That's an important thing to remember. So it's not like the people they picked weren't talented at all. There were a couple of obviously bad misses, but most of these guys have gotten shakes on other teams and in different places. It just didn't work out for the 49ers. And it's kind of what you hope for. A couple of these guys contributed to the 49ers and were rotation players and actually saw the field for them for a couple of years. So obviously they replaced them with better players, but I think this is just obviously first draft issue when you have short timers. And again, I would caution people to use hindsight to say, oh, they should have drafted Kirk Cousins, because Chicago drafted freaking Mitch Trubisky with the second pick that we traded down with them. So obviously there were mixed reviews on what Patrick Mahomes was going to be. He was viewed largely as a project, and it's very easy to look after he spent a year under a consummate pro and Alex Smith and under Andy Reid and see what he turned into and be like, oh man, if we would have drafted Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, you might not have gotten this guy. If Patrick Mahomes is instead starting year one for the 49ers and getting beat up because there's no talent on the team, maybe he doesn't develop the way that he did in Kansas City and he's not as good. Sometimes it's talent plus circumstance that makes a player good. So I think I would caution everybody to just keep looking back on that and hand-wringing in that regard.
Yeah. Also, I just want to address this comment from leaving 30 to 40 million for Cousins would have kneecapped the rebuild. I see Mark Cisneros already pointed out they weren't making that in 2017, 2018, but also they went on to pay record-setting money for Jimmy, and it didn't really seem to affect the rebuild that much, if at all. I mean, they did turn into a perennial Super Bowl contender, it seems. So it didn't affect them too badly. But we'll see. I think when Jimmy got his contract, what was he, $25 million per year or something like that? And that was like record setting at the time. And that was only after 5 games. So they had to do it sooner. They, in my opinion, would have been better off with Kirk, perhaps. But we'll see. All right, let's move on to the 2018 draft class. Let me pull it up here. And we see some familiar names here as well. Let me make sure. All right. Mike McGlinchey was taken 9th overall. Dante Pettis was taken 44th overall. Fred Warner, 70th overall in the 3rd round. Tarvarius Moore, 95th overall round, also in the 3rd round. Kentavious Street, 128th overall in the 4th round. DJ Reed, 142nd overall in the 5th round. Marcel Harris, 184th overall in the 6th. Julian Taylor, 223rd overall in the 7th. And Richie James, 240th overall in the 7th. Matt, we'll start with you again. What sticks out to you from this draft?
Yeah, this draft, obviously, Fred Warner is the best pick in this draft. But I'm going to go with, Dante Pettis. And the reason this sticks out to me is that this draft, I think, is the last time that the 49ers went against type in terms of the players and the personality and the mentality that they like to have in their players. They took Dante Pettis because he had the most punt return yards in NCAA, and he was a speed guy, and he was this and he was that. But as we came to find out, Dante Pettis was not a guy that wanted to compete. He was not a guy that was hard-nosed. He was not a guy that could accept criticism. And I think this draft marks the last draft where they explicitly picked people high in that draft that didn't have that dog mentality. And we'll see next year in the 2019 draft, with their draft picks, that they pick guys that are willing to get in there and really get physical. It's a shame that Dante Pettis didn't work out, but I think that this was a good learning lesson for Kyle and John to really be like, okay, listen, we got, we can identify talent, but we also need the personality to match that talent. We need guys that can take some heavy criticism, take some hard coaching, and not let it break them. And I think that this is probably, I don't know for sure, but I would I would guess that this would be the initiation of their golden helmet guys. The guys that they're like, no, this guy fits the value of what we're trying to build here. And that's something that you'll see in year 3 and year 4 of a regime when they're finally filling in pieces, finally trying to get competitive and can kind of establish what they want. So, I think that Pettis is a key in that I think his pick and his failure changed how they pick players going forward.
Yeah. Agreed. Sin is asking where Pettis is now.
The Bears.
Chicago last year. I don't know if he's going to be on the active roster this year because it really improved their wide receiver room. With Roma Dunze and Keenan Allen.
It's crazy that if these are his career stats, 984 yards, he had, I want to say 600 on the back end of his rookie year. And I remember everybody, or 500 perhaps. And I remember everybody thinking like, oh my God, he finally got it together. That would have been on pace for 1,000-yard season. This is great. Dante's finally coming into his own. He's out of the doghouse, yada, yada, yada. And that never amounted to anything. Mike, what's your initial thoughts on this draft class looking back 6 years later?
I hated the first pick because we had a tackle that we ended up trading during the draft. I don't know if you guys remember that whole thing.
Trent Brown?
Yes, it was a mess, and that's when I was like, I don't trust them in the first round. This is when we should never draft to get in the first round talks started to heat up a little bit, and then as it went forward, it got worse. My favorite player in this draft was Julian Taylor, and I know his career was very, very short, but that was all due to injuries, not because of performance or anything like that. DJ Reed was a really, really good pick that unfortunately they tried to stash and ended up getting reach from the Niners, and then he went other places and also. They had some guys that showed some promise. Tavarius Moore was another one that I was really high on. Not so much during the draft, but once we saw what they were doing in preseason and things like that, those were guys that got us excited. This was not a terrible draft when it happened, but it the numbers are there. A lot more of these players sticking around as well. So kudos to them. The numbers are going to get lower and lower when you see the years because we're going forward, obviously. But these guys are still around, still trying to make some headway. You don't see a lot of these guys in the XFL, so this was not that terrible of a draft class.
Yeah. Also, Mike, I remember interviewing 2 players on this list with you, and they were the first times I had ever spoken to a player. Shout out to Nothing But Nice for going to have them, but Julian Taylor and Richie James.
Yeah.
And they were cool as hell. They were cool dudes, really down to earth. And that was like one of my first memories of like being with Nothing But Niners and interviewing them. And I felt like such a legit like journalist or something. It was cool. It's a cool memory to have those. I appreciate you inviting me on for that.
It was great, man.
Yeah. All right. On this list, obviously Fred Warner. I've said this on my show, and I remember being how excited I was when this happened. But I had done a ton of mock drafts for Nothing But Niners, and one of them happened to have Fred Warner to the Niners at 70th overall. And when that pick happened, I was just ecstatic. I had no idea he would turn into the linebacker he is now, but I liked him at BYU. I thought he could fill a hole for us, and I was probably thinking temporarily, boy, has he turned into the best inside linebacker in the NFL. Like, just everything he can do defies logic. He's fast, he's bendy, simultaneously hard-hitting and strong. He can keep up routes with receivers, but also, fill the A gap. Like, there's nothing this dude can't do. And, he almost willed the 49ers to a Super Bowl win this past February when his partner in crime, Jerry Greenlaw, went out with an Achilles tear. But damn, is he talented. Tavarius Moore seemed to always be on the cusp of making that development into a starting DB for the 49ers. Unfortunately, didn't happen.
No, he had it. That I think that ruptured Achilles really set him back for him.
For more?
For more, yeah.
Oh, I forgot he even had that injury. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Marcel Harris, he played, safety and then even went into the box a little bit. And he had some time at linebacker. So the 49ers did experiment, with Marcel Harris a bit before ultimately letting him go. But they picked up a couple quality starters for a few years in this draft. But only looking back 6 years later, Fred Warner is the mainstay here. Mike McGlinchey got that giant contract from Denver and left the 49ers last season and turned into one of the worst graded tackles in the NFL. So looks like they dodged a bullet there. But they still had to put up with it for 4 years or 5 years, however long it was. All right, let's pull up the 2019 draft list. Or before we move on, any final thoughts here? No?
What could have been Slim Mike just decided that he was going to go the route of thinning up when Joe Saley retired and needed to really eat a sandwich so he didn't get knocked on his ass. And my biggest memory of him is being horizontal from Micah Parsons. Shame.
Yeah. It's a very sad picture. Nobody his size should be completely parallel to the ground, 5 feet in the air.
No, but we have Slim Mike number 2 in Colt McKivitz. Just costs about $11 million a year less.
Yeah. Leaving. Wow. What a specific moment in time that this brings back to. That one Richie James game over 200 yards. Talk about COVID football. I remember I was having work done on my car. I remember driving home. It's pitch black. It's like in the winter. And I'm watching the game on my phone. And I think we played the Packers or something that game. And it was like a Thursday night football game.
He was like COVID. Wide receiver 1 or 2 or something like that in that game.
And it was like Nick Mullins versus, I don't even know if Rodgers played that game or not, but he just went off. He went off that game. That's a weird memory. Was that when they had the cutouts of fans in the stands and all that crazy shit?
It was so bad. What a year. Oh man, what a year.
All right, let me pull this up now. 2019 draft class. Let me make sure the screen's all right, which of course they are not. All right, now we see some quality. 3 years in, the third draft class for the 49ers. Number 1 pick by them was the number 2 pick in the draft. Nick Bosa fell into their laps because Arizona took Kyler Murray, number 1 overall. And then 36th overall, they took Deebo Samuel. 67th overall, Jalen Hurd. 110th overall, Mitch Wishnowsky. 148th overall, Dre Greenlaw. 176th overall, Caden Smith. 183 overall, Justin School. And 198th overall, Tim Harris. Matt, again, please lead us off with your thoughts on this class.
Yeah, up to this point, their best draft. I mean, 4 of these players are still starters on the team. If you can get 4 quality starters out of your draft, that's a hell of a draft. And not only are there 4 starters, but you're talking about 3 out of the 4 minus Mitch Wishnowsky having made Pro Bowls. So you're talking about 3 Pro Bowl players and a punter that honestly looks really, really good. We talk about Mitch Wishnowsky coffin corner and kicks last year with the best of them. Can't be mad at that. Jalen Hurd had that preseason game heard around the world that gave him a reputation that lasted for 3 years. So maybe if he doesn't get injured, it turns into something different. And then at the end, your 3 6-rounders didn't necessarily work out. Justin School was here for a little while, made some quality, starts at times looked overmatched, but you're kind of just throwing the dartboard against the wall at that point, and you just want to get some production if you can. So this overall, great draft. I mean, the first 2 picks they had, Bosa and Samuel, they knocked it out of the park with those 2 guys. So can't be mad at that. Dre Greenlaw on the 5th. Again, the 5th round is where the 49ers seem to eat in these drafts. So, this is the first one we're like, okay. They couldn't screw up the Bosa pick. Bosa is a generational talent as a defensive end, so you knew he was going to be good. You knew that they were probably going to go after Debo after the Senior Bowl. Kyle Shanahan coached the Senior Bowl, so he got to see Debo Samuel up close. But again, this is the first time that we see that, what all these guys have in common. I mean, a lot of these guys are dogs, right? And say what you will about Jalen Hurd, I don't think that he wasn't a dog. I think that he just got really injured. I mean, back injuries are serious business, so these guys all play. Mitch Wishnowsky, dog. Watch him. He tries to tackle everybody. That dude's a savage. So, this was a great draft, I thought, overall.
Yep. Mike, what are your thoughts on this class?
This entire draft class is due to Jimmy Garoppolo. I just want to start there. We want to thank him for his week 2 injury, I believe it was, against the Chiefs. The prior
that was
season, right?
week 3.
Week 3. I apologize. Yeah. So this was a great one. I remember the great debate of the whole, if they don't take Kyler Murray, or if they don't take Kyler Murray, where do the Niners go? Is it going to be Nick Bosa? I mean, because they assumed Nick Bosa would be first overall.
Yeah. They were thinking
Quinnen Williams.
Yeah. Yes. So that was the Quinnen Williams draft, and that was because they had taken Josh Rosen the year before. And that's why there was a question if Arizona was going to take. Yeah. And then they hired Cliff Kingsbury, and that really forced their hand. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it was good. By far my favorite draft of the 49ers. I'll let you guys know if I find another one that was better. But this one I absolutely loved. I was not upset about the Mitch Wishnowsky pick. I love the Jalen Hurd pick. I love the Nick Bosa pick. Debo obviously turned into who he is. Who would have thought that he only has 19 receiving touchdowns in 5 seasons? That's less than 4 a year. Damn. But that's interesting. I mean, now he's got 19 rushing, so let me not make it sound like he's not contributing. But I would have thought that Debo had more receiving touchdowns in his entire career than just 19, right? But here we are. This was a really, really good draft. I like the Justin School pick. I like the Tim Harris pick. I even love the Caden Smith pick. He was one of my top 5 tight ends that year. Greenlaw, I wasn't all that hyped up about, but he turned into a stud as well. You know what I'm saying? This was a really, really good draft for the 49ers. Again, when you're picking early in rounds, this is the kind of talent that you can get, and it kind of shows that, right? If you're picking in the top 5 of each round, you're going to get some really, really good players out of that. So kudos to them for doing it that way. As far as overall disappointments out of this draft, if you take away injuries, I don't think there were many disappointments in this one.
Not at all. So I'm trying to find the stats. Do you guys remember how many touchdowns Hurd had in that preseason game? My memory says 3, 2. But online says 2. Okay, 2. So it was 2.
Yeah, but that one that he pinballed off all those Cowboys kind of looked like it was going to be counted for 2.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
That was a good one, yeah.
And that's when the injury happened, apparently. But
sure.
had that hairline fracture in his spine or something that they took months to find. My memory's failing me on this, but it is unfortunate what happened because it seemed like such a sure thing that he was going to develop into a star receiver for the 49ers, and it never amounted to anything. And there was just so much wasted potential and hope. That last preseason, I think he was on the team until 2019, if I remember correctly, or 2020.
Mm-hmm.
2021, it shows when the 49ers finally released him going into 2021. Man, there was just such a high level of hope for him that never amounted to anything. But Mike, yeah, also weird memory. What happens if the Cardinals take Nick Bosa 1 overall, Quentin Williams? There are a few other picks in that draft. Do they go running back? Do they go? And luckily, we didn't have to deal with that because Nick Bosa fell into their laps, and it's the only first-round pick, so far that has turned into a superstar for them, and arguably the former defensive player of the year. Like, he's a fantastic player, one of the best in the league overall. Deebo Samuel, like you said, look at those career stats since 2019: 1,007 rushing yards, 4,100 receiving yards. It is kind of weird, very even 19-19 receiving and rushing touchdowns, like Mike pointed out. I didn't realize that was the case. Matt, you spoke about Mitch already, turned into a great punter. A lot of people questioned this pick at the time and still did a few years later, but I think now the 49ers are vindicated with him because he has turned into a special teams weapon. And Dre Greenlaw, nothing else needs to be said for Dre Greenlaw. He's like the soul of that defense, often referred to as the Draymond of the 49ers. I think that's fair, maybe a little less dirty, maybe not, depending on the game. Justin School was a nice swing tackle for the 49ers for a bit. Ultimately, they let him go. But this is a very solid draft class. And I don't remember, we don't remember draft classes years back, but looking back on it, if you would have told me they got all these players in one draft, like Matt said, I believe, you take that, 11 times out of 10, because this is an insane yield off of one draft class. And again, I forget which 49ers content creator said, if Jimmy has another ACL to give, we can have another top 10 pick. And then I forget which player it was in the next draft coming up, but that did not go over lightly. So yes, thank you, Jimmy, for having that injury happen. The 49ers were able to land Nick Bosa and really catapult that defense forward. All right, any final thoughts before I pull up 2020?
Not for me.
All right, let me pull them up here.
Oh, wait, I do have one more. Back-to-back wide receivers. Keep that in mind. It's going to come into play later on.
Okay.
They went Deebo and then Hurd, second and third round. So I thought that was something interesting.
All right, let me pull up 2020 here. And this one is a very short list.
Very short. And man, could they have kept this one. But no.
Javon Kinlaw, 14th overall. This is the year after they made the Super Bowl, so 2020. This is when Emmanuel Sanders walked. They traded DeForest Buckner to Indianapolis, netting them the second first-round pick, 25th overall. No, 14th overall, because they had the 25th overall. So Javon Kinlaw, 14th overall. Sorry, I think they had the 31st overall, and then they traded up.
Yeah, they traded up. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, to get Brandon Ayuk 25th. Javon Kinlaw, 14, Ayuk 25. These were thought of as like a Defoe and a Sanders replacement picks. Colton McKivitz. Damn, the 49ers had 2 first round and then pick again till the 5th round. That's insane. Then next pick, Colton McKivitz, 5th round, 153rd overall. 6th round, Charlie Warner, 190th overall. And the 7th round, Jawan Jennings, 217th overall. All these players, their names are still in bold, which means they are still in the NFL. Look at what Ayuk's done in a year less than what Deebo's done. Almost as many receiving yards and 6 more receiving touchdowns. Matt, lead us off, please, with your thoughts on this class.
Yeah, I think that Javon Kinlaw's career was doomed just because he was always going to be compared to DeForest Buckner, and unfortunately injury bugged him early. But this last year, I thought he played really well, and that parlayed into a nice free agent deal from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's where he went, right? Jacksonville.
Kinlaw?
Yeah.
I think he went to the Jets.
That's right. He went to the Jets. Eric Armstead went to the Jaguars. Pardon me. I think Werner went somewhere as well.
Atlanta.
There you go. But up until last year, from the 2020 draft through this past season, all 5 of these guys were on the 49ers and contributing. Werner minimally, but everybody else contributing. Kinlaw was a rotational guy, if not a starter. Ayuk obviously is about to get paid big time. McKivitz is still the starting right tackle for the 49ers. And Juwan Jennings, wide receiver 3. Third and Juwan, everybody knows that. Overall, not a bad draft in a vacuum, but you have to take into account what it took to get here. And I think the trading of DeForest Buckner, the big contract they gave to Eric Armstead, this was after 2019. So this, I believe, would have been the year that they got D Ford from the Kansas City Chiefs for the second round pick. And so that just turns into a lot of injuries, a lot of given up assets, which will haunt the 49ers for the next couple of years, particularly in the 2021 draft. Not terrible in a vacuum, but again, you have to take the circumstances. So overall, kind of a poor draft, really. Brandon Ayuk's obviously the standout, but everywhere else is kind of replacement level players. And it's a shame that this draft didn't work out because on paper, it didn't look that bad at the time.
I could be wrong, but I think one of these draft picks, in addition to D Ford, I think it also warranted, I could be wrong. What was the receiver that came in the Super Bowl year?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders. I think he was also one of these draft picks. So if you factor that in, Emmanuel Sanders,
I think you're right. He was a fifth rounder.
Something like that, right? So, I mean, if you factor all that in, it's not a terrible draft, but this will be the fall of the 5th round pick greatness. Colton McKivitz now, albeit still here and a starter, right? Technically. But I mean, the 5th round kind of lost some of its luster here. You go from Greenlaw to McKivitz and it's like not the same thing, not the Kittle, not the Greenlaw. So we're kind of knocking it back here a little bit, but you got to factor everything into it, and they were building now at this point. We know we're good. We know we can make some deep runs. Now we got to go out there and acquire other talent. And I am not opposed to teams using draft capital to acquire proven pros from the NFL. I will do that as much as possible if I'm a team in the NFL.
And let's keep it real. It's not like Emmanuel Sanders wasn't good for the 49ers. I mean, if Jimmy doesn't decide that one time to actually overthrow somebody for the first time in his career, the 49ers potentially win a Super Bowl, and Emmanuel Sanders played a huge part in that. He was very, very good for the 49ers after coming over in that trade.
And great development for Debo. Sorry.
Thank you. I was going to add that exactly that. Not only on the field, but what he brought to the wide receiver room. And Debo himself spoke about it plentiful, how much he taught him how to be a pro. Like without that, who's the veteran receiver in the 49ers receiver room? There really isn't one. So he brought, leadership and ability to the 49ers. And Mark Cisneros said here, they traded a 3rd and 4th for him. On the flip side, New England traded a 2nd for Mohamed Sanu, which talk about a downfall. Mohamed Sanu was elite in Atlanta and unfortunately did not translate after that.
Didn't he end up in San Francisco?
He did.
Mohamed Sanu anyway, and he was like booty butt cheeks.
Kyle still loved playing him over Ayuk.
Yeah.
So I remember going to that game in Levi's against Arizona. That was the Colt McCoy ass whooping game when Jimmy threw a hospital ball to Sanu and he basically got him taken out for the season. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and kudos to Ayuk for averaging almost 1,000 yards a year for a guy that was reportedly in a doghouse for half of one of his seasons here. The 3,931 yards in 4 seasons is pretty damn impressive for that.
And note the difference between how Ayuk responded to being in the doghouse versus a couple years prior, Dante Pettis responding to being in the doghouse. And this is what I was talking about the shift in the type of player, the type of mentality for each player that they decided to take at that point.
Yeah. And now Brandon Ayuk set to have a monster contract.
He's averaging almost 15 yards a reception for his career. That is a phenomenal stat to have as a wide receiver in the NFL. He's getting busy and open downfield. Yeah, that is great.
Absolutely insane. All right, so a very short draft class in 2020, but nonetheless still plentiful in terms of what they yielded out of it in starting reps, started games. Marcus Cisneros says, makes you wonder what numbers Ayuk would have had right now if he had a competent quarterback in his first 2 years. or wasn't beefing with the head coach and play caller as well. Either one of those, maybe things look a little differently. All right, let's get into any final thoughts before we get into 2021. Oh, all right,
I don't think so.
let me pull up 2021. This is where things get interesting. Obviously, heading into that draft, the 49ers traded 2 first-round picks and a swap of their 2021 first-round pick to Miami in exchange for the 3rd overall pick, which they selected Trey Lance with. We later found out that they traded up without a certain player in mind and just decided 3 would be as high as we can get and high enough to get us one of the 3 quarterbacks that we like. So they take Trey Lance. Obviously, that was a colossal failure. 2nd round, they took Aaron Banks, 48th overall. 3rd round, 88th overall, Trey Sermon. 3rd round, Ambry Thomas, 102nd overall. 5th round, Jalen Moore, 155th overall. 5th round, Deommodore Lenoir, 172nd overall. 5th round, Talanoa Hufanga, 180th overall. And 6th round, Elijah Mitchell, 194th overall. Matt, please, what are your thoughts on this one?
Another back-heavy draft where the draft really started for them. Really in the 3rd round, I would say, Aaron Banks he's a starter. He's developed nicely. He's very good. But it really started for them with the Jalen Moore pick, who, he was a swing tackle, very valuable for the 49ers at one time. And then you get 3 really good players in a row: Deommodore Lenoir, Talanoa Hufanga, and Elijah Mitchell. Deommodore Lenoir, obviously starting cornerback for us. Talanoa Hufanga, first-team All-Pro, got injured. Elijah Mitchell almost had 1,000 yards his rookie year and then just hasn't been able to stay healthy. But they're good players. This really is another example of the first couple of rounds being spotty at best. The Trey Lance pick was a huge whiff. I know we were all excited about it at the time, but I think history has shown, and I don't necessarily put all the blame on the 49ers. If you look at that 2021 quarterback draft class, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is the best one out of those, and he's pretty mediocre for what everybody assumed was going to be a generational talent. He's been like meh. The other
Glorified
4
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, the other 4 are not with their original teams. Rumor is that Justin Fields is going to return kicks for the Steelers, as said by his teammate Jalen Warren. Justin Fields went to a difficult situation in Chicago, but just did not work out for them. Mac Jones obviously didn't work out for the Patriots. It just over and over. And Zach Wilson famously was more into teammates' moms than he was into playing football. You go over the whole draft class, and it was a disaster. It was not what it was advertised to be. This was supposed to compete with that 84 quarterback class, and it just sadly did not. So, a good back heavy draft for the 49ers, but the Trey Lance whiff is what this draft is going to be really remembered for, because it was a huge one that really put the 49ers behind the 8 ball with their drafting for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Mike, what are your thoughts on this class?
I like the Aaron Banks pick when it happened probably the most. I just like physical, like powerful interior offensive linemen. I don't care about fits and all that stuff. I want mean bullies in there. I don't like the team tries to make guys be more agile than what they are and all that stuff. And that's what Aaron Banks was, playing next to Nelson, was it Quentin Nelson, I believe,
Yep.
over in Notre Dame, right? So, I really like the pick at the time that it happened. Lenoir is probably my favorite corner on the team right now. This was a solid draft. Elijah Mitchell, man, talk about, injuries just decapitating something, right? Like, this kid almost had 1,000 yards his rookie year, and he's not even at 2,000 as a total. It's kind of rough. And my only question to you guys is this about Trey Lance. It's not about his play here. Why does it say only 2 years in the pros for him? Did his last season not count with the Cowboys? I thought he was on their 53. That's a weird.
I don't know if he ever dressed for them, to be honest.
Do you have to dress to?
You have to be on the active roster. He wasn't activated for any of those games.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
That is. I didn't. Okay. Okay.
He might have been on the 53, but I don't think that he was part of the 48 that's active for game days.
That's interesting. I wonder what
So
that
he's
does for his
like
contract
he counts
negotiations
as
right
like the emergency third quarterback.
Yeah.
So you're not technically active, but you can be activated if the first two go down.
Right.
And that's the 49ers rule from ironically enough, this the next season, 2022. So
what a sad
I do want to
outcome.
say real quick, my draft crest from this draft was Creed Humphrey, who has turned to be an absolute mauler. I would have loved him on the 49ers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Talked about it that whole offseason going into that draft.
Whole time I was like, Creed Humphrey, that dude is a beast.
Yeah.
And
it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Don't get used to seeing ones. You won't see another one for the next 3 pages. So
that's right.
Just be ready, man. That's it there.
Which also means the 49ers will have 3 straight years without a 5th-year option able to be picked up on a player.
Spoiler alert, after Trey Lance, their first round pick is Ricky Pearsall. So
all right. My thoughts on this class, obviously, yes, it's unfortunate how Trey Lance panned out for the 49ers. But it's unfortunate in the most fortunate way, if that makes sense, because it's not like he crashed and burned and took the organization down with him. The 49ers cut ties because they felt like they had a better option in Brock Purdy, who they drafted the year after this class, and just completely took over, showed them a lot more, apparently than what they had ever seen out of Trey. They felt more comfortable. My whole issue with this pick has always been you took a player with very little experience, and even less so because that last year was ended due to COVID. And you either expected him to be up to speed day one and be able to pick up the ball and start and play at a very high level, or you weren't really willing to give him the reins because you still had Jimmy. So that was my whole issue with this pick, was that either you give it to him and you let him develop 100% and commit, or else was it really that urgent that you needed to trade up all of these picks to get him right now? Because this was a win now team. That was always the whole thing. This is a win now team. So I don't know. Maybe that's just my hindsight 2020 looking back on it. But I wish he could have been given the opportunity to actually develop and play those meaningful snaps, because he did get better whenever we did see him play. He just didn't really get to play. And then he shattered his ankle when the team finally did commit to him. So that's not their fault, because once he did get the opportunity, he got hurt 2 weeks into the season, not even a full 2 weeks. It was like a game and 2 drives second week for Seattle. So that's unfortunate. Trey Sermon obviously didn't develop into anything. Got cut the next year, I want to say. Ambry Thomas was very promising his rookie year, and it was funny. It was like Ambry was on the up and up. Diamador Lenore was not going to make it, and now it's completely flipped. Ambry might not make it. Diamador Lenore, like Mike said, is one of the best corners, if not the best, on the roster. Jalen Moore hasn't really amounted to much. Talanoa Hufanga, star safety, and Elijah Mitchell, like you guys said, I think he finished like 29 yards short of 1,000 rookie year, and then he's only had about 500 cents. But to be fair, Kyle almost never plays any other running back that after acquiring Christian McCaffrey. And Mitchell wasn't even healthy the first 5 weeks of 2022, if I remember correctly. So very interesting draft class, a lot of what ifs and a few hits. So this was a nice class. Any final thoughts before I move on to 2022? No? All right. Let me pull these up here. I remember being so excited when they drafted Trey Sermon, thinking it was like a luxury pick. And oh my God, the 49ers, they got a stud, and that just did not amount to anything. Why does Pro Football Reference not have 2021?
It does. Just go to the. Oh shit. Yeah, it does. It's there.
All right, here we go.
Well, we were already. That was 2021.
Oh, that was 2021.
You need
right.
2022.
Yeah, here we go.
At the very top, you could just hit next season.
Oh, okay. That's nice. I've been Googling it on a whole separate tab this whole time. I could have just done that.
No, yeah, no, you could right in the same tab. You can just click next class.
Yeah. Mark Cisneros says Creed Humphrey, SMH, could have been right guard his rookie year and then took over from Mac in 2022. The potential was always there. No idea why. And not only that, hurts the most because they let him go to Kansas City, Or, of course, the motherfucker. I mean, it could have been any player the 49ers wanted. If he goes to Kansas City instead, he's going to be an all-pro with our luck. It's unfortunate, but all right. 2022 draft, like we just said, no first-round pick. Drake Jackson was their first overall pick, 61st overall in the second round. Tyrion Davis Price, Tyrion Davis. I forget how to pronounce his first name. TDP.
I think it's Tyrion. Yeah.
Tyrion, 93rd overall in the third. Danny Gray, 105th overall in the third as well. Spencer Burford, 134th overall in the fourth. Sammy Womack, 172nd overall in the fifth. Nick Zakelj, 187th overall in the sixth. Kalia Davis, 222nd overall, 220th overall in the sixth. Tariq Castro Fields, 221st overall. Oh, they had back-to-back picks there in the sixth as well. And then, lo and behold, Brock Purdy, 262nd overall in the seventh. Mr. Irrelevant. Matt, what are your thoughts on this class?
This class is booty butt cheeks saved by an absolute Hail Mary. I don't like this draft class at all, and I know Spencer Burford has played. Every other guy on this pick is replacement level. Had high hopes for Drake Jackson, but it doesn't look like he's going to turn out, particularly, when they go out there and they sign Floyd and they sign all these other guys, and you got a second round guy in-house that can't seemingly hit the field and stay on the field. Danny Gray, total bust, can't stay on the field, can't do anything. They were going to use him as a return guy last year. He got hurt in the preseason, and they just never put him back on the field. Womack can't stay on the field. Zakelj, Kalia Davis, Tariq Castro Fields, all practice squad players, essentially. TDP, a.k.a. Total Dookie Pants, he's gone. Just overall a bad draft class, saved by the absolute luckiest of lucky Mr. Irrelevant picks ever. And then you still needed Trey Lance to break his leg and Jimmy Garoppolo to break his foot for you to figure that out. This honestly is worse than the 2017 draft. Just because I can understand finding a guy like George Kittle that you like and he turns into something more than you thought in the fifth round. But the last dude in the draft and a quarterback on top of that is the best player of your draft class. That's a bad draft class. Like, no way to really sugarcoat that. And they got extremely lucky with Brock Purdy. And of course, we're all going to sit here and enjoy the luck, of course. The stats are up there on the board. 44 touchdowns, only 15 interceptions in his 1.5. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And he looks like he's the quarterback of the future for the 49ers. But the rest of these guys, I mean, it's just a whole bunch of bleh,
Yeah. Mike,
you take that 3-to-1 touchdown interception ratio all day long. If that's your quarterback, you take that all day long, and you can't bark on it. Tariq Castro Fields showed a lot of promise, and just he went somewhere else, right? He didn't even make the roster, if I'm not mistaken. He went somewhere.
By the way, Mike, real quick, Mark Cisneros points out if Brock Purdy doesn't have that fluky 4-interception game against the Ravens, he has a 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio.
Talk about it. Come on.
Yep.
Like, that's insane. Think about that. And three of them came off of drop tip passes and shit like
tips.
That.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this kid was working out there. This kid is working. He's doing his thing out there. I mean, and you don't balk at, Matt said that, your quarterback is the highlight. Normally that's cool if it's in the first 3 rounds. Seventh round, it's like, what, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're just shooting in the dark, right? Mm-hmm. And it makes you question how they evaluate quarterbacks and all that stuff. You look at the Trey Lance pick, then you look at the Brock Purdy pick, and it makes you wonder who is doing the valuations on these players. And how are you setting them up on your board?
Yep.
It's mind-boggling, and even goes back to the Jimmy Garoppolo and C.J. Beathard pick, right? Like, it's like, do we really know how to judge quarterbacks and what they're going to do on this team, right? Or is it just results based? Is it just, hey, go out there and let's just see what you do? Because that's dangerous.
And by the way, at this point in the offseason, Jimmy Garoppolo was not on the active roster. He was a free agent. He was a guy they were looking to trade and get rid of, because Trey Lance was going to be allegedly the starter, and that changed around the beginning of the training camp, and once they saw what Trey Lance was going to do. I think they tried to build something around Trey Lance, and it just wasn't going to work.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Trey, Gutfeld, and then Brock Purdy. That was the quarterback room going into the 2022 season. And reportedly, Kyle panicked when he saw what Trey looked like and thought, holy shit, I need to get Jimmy back here.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I think the Danny Gray pick was a direct correlation with the previous quarterback and Trey Lance. I think that they wanted someone with some speed that he couldn't overthrow, and so that pick kind of looks a little iffy now. But if you're looking at it from a building perspective, you kind of get it, right? You go with Drake Jackson. We need to get that other guy who was similar in stature and physical attributes to from Kansas City.
D Ford.
Oh my God.
D Ford.
D Ford. Thank you very much. Thank you. Like you give him another year to learn under him. D Ford was still kind of hanging around, not healthy, but in the building, and he can learn from him a little bit and things like that, right? You realize that Trey Sermon wasn't the guy. So let's get a running back now at the third pick overall. Elijah Mitchell can't stay healthy and all that stuff. Like we got all these issues and everything. So boom, let's go with TDP. Find another backup. Trey Sermon doesn't look like he's going to get it. Didn't work out. Again, you get the quarterback. I mean, you get the quarterback's favorite weapon in a Danny Gray. This kid likes to throw the ball downfield. Let's get someone who can go down there and do it. Up until that point, the Niners didn't show that they had a burner on the roster at the wide receiver position. I wasn't mad at that pick. Spencer Burford comes in, and you're like, all right, maybe he can do something. Where is he going to play? Are they going to put him at tackle? Are they going to put him at guard? And this is when I started to dislike we want players that can play all over the line. This is when I realized I hate that. I do not like that mold. If you want a guard, draft a guy that plays guard. Don't draft a tackle and say we're going to kick you inside and all that. I hate that now. But call it sour grapes. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Spoiler alert, they did it again this year.
I know, right? It's like, come on, like give us a guy that is that guy where he plays and let him play there. But we'll see how, maybe it works out. I'm not a pro, right? So whatever. Sure. Samuel Womack, I actually scratch my head about his play time so much because it seems like when he's out there, he's always around the ball. He seems to make plays, but he's doing something from play call to snap to finish that they don't like. So with our eyes, we see the stats, we see the numbers, we see the pick and all that stuff. Like we see those kind of things, but it's like, what don't they like? So it's something that's in the books that they don't get. And it takes me back to Reuben Foster.
Yeah, I wonder if it's something like he's good in the slot in man coverage, but they can't trust him in zone or something of that ilk, right? But they can only trust him very situationally, and they have other guys on the roster who are a little more versatile, might not have the upside in that one aspect that Womack does well, but has less of a floor in the other stuff that Womack struggles at. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah.
Right.
And Womack had that nice preseason. I mean, this preseason, he had, 3 or 4 interceptions going into the season?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, you're right. You guys are killing it. Like always around the ball, always seems to be making plays, but then they don't trust something about him, right? And that goes back to the Reuben Foster thing, right? We thought Reuben Foster, if it wasn't for the off-field antics, would have been a good player. But the truth of the matter is they tried giving him the green dot. He couldn't do it, so that's why they go and get a Fred Warner and say, "Okay, Fred, you're going to get it, right?" I remember so clearly. We're going to get Reuben Foster. Patrick Willis is gone now. Bowman, this is your team. We want you to train this guy. And Bowman's like, "I'm not here to train a guy to take my job." I remember all the little kerfuffle. I got the green dot. I'm the guy. If you guys are going to go out there and get this guy, then let me go somewhere else. Since we end up going to Oakland and all that, we release him instead of trading him and all that.
Boy.
It was. They wanted Reuben Foster to be the general out there, and he was like, no, I just want to see ball, get ball. I don't want to talk to other people. I don't want to communicate. I'm not that guy. Let me just go play ball, and it didn't work out. I feel like something like that similar is happening with Womack, where they can play well when they're out there, but you're not being the guy we need you to be for whatever reason. Kalia Davis showed some flashes in preseason, but never could amount to any. Well, I'm not going to say couldn't amount to anything, but he had an injury one year. Then they kind of housed him. And then, we'll see what happens. Tariq Castro Fields couldn't make the cut. He goes somewhere else, starts playing. And then there's Brock Purdy. So when you look at it at face value, at the time, the draft wasn't a terrible one. But when you start looking at the results of it, it hasn't borne the fruit. What's the word?
It hasn't bore fruit.
It hasn't.
I don't know.
Yeah,
we know what you're saying.
Produced,
but
it hasn't produced any fruit. There you go.
I will say this though. There are 4 names on this list that this year is make or break, perhaps for their careers, and I like that kind of pressure on a guy like Drake Jackson. The injury, you had the surgery, and all that stuff. All right, here we go. This is your year now. You got to show us something, right? Danny Gray, you've been around. You know the books. You know the system. Get it together. Injuries are over for you, right? Spencer Burford, right? We know about the whiff in the Super Bowl. It's been well documented. Your own teammates were calling you out on it, right? So we know what's happening. That's 3. And then there's Kalia Davis. Davis, you know the system. You've been here. You flashed in it, right? We housed you for a whole year. Now it's time to come out and see what you can actually do. Those 4 names right there could end up making this draft class, if they come out and play well. All right, this was actually not that bad of a draft. If they come out and play well this year.
I think Danny Gray's on the outs, though. They essentially drafted Danny Gray with route running in Ricky Pearsall, who is probably the 49ers fastest straight line receiver at this point, and has much better route running, a full route tree that Danny Gray doesn't have. So
100%.
Yeah, it is make or break for a few of these guys. It's just I just don't see where they can make up, lost time on a lot of these guys. I mean, the most disappointing obviously would be Drake Jackson, because he was drafted the highest, but like, where does he fit?
Well, he's got 2 years of injuries also, right? So we all got excited about the week 1 against the Steelers, the 3 sacks, but I remember clearly like 2.5 of them, and I know he got 3 of them, were coverage sacks. Like, he had all day. Just get there and do something. Now, one thing I will say is that when he got his hands on the quarterback, he didn't let go. He's got like that you guys ever see the football movie Little Giants?
Oh, yeah.
With Rick Moranis. Remember the kid that wanted to be the receiver, and he got the sticky shit on him?
Yeah, he sticks it to his chest,
Yeah, that's Drake Jackson's hands. When he gets his hands on a quarterback, he doesn't let him go. So I will give him that, but you got to get there more, and you got to get there a little bit faster. So hopefully this is the year for it.
Yeah, this is a tough draft class aside from Brock Purdy, which, by the way, what has he played? Maybe, well, there it is right there. 25 games. He's got 5,600 passing yards. Like, just insane. In a season and a half. I'm assuming that includes postseason. But the success he's had.
I think the 25 is just regular season.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Then, damn, that's even more impressive.
I saw a post today. I think it was Dove. I don't know how to say it. Kleiman. Dove Kleiman. I don't know the Twitter handle, but he posted something that said 400-yard passer since 2020. And he had all the teams, like how many games they had and all that stuff, or just in one game. The Niners don't have one. Did you guys know that we haven't passed for 400 yards in a game?
Makes sense.
Was Nick Mullins the last one to do it?
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I would have never thought that. I didn't know that's there it is. What year is this? It says since 2020. The Niners don't have one. Now, I mean, when it says since 2020, does that mean 2021 and forward, or does that mean starting in 2020?
I
don't know what since
starting.
I would say since 2020. That would include.
I thought Nick Mullins did it in 2020. No. What was the game Nick Mullins got verified on Twitter?
The Raiders game.
We were playing the Raiders. We were. What year was that? That was the one. I thought he threw for 400 yards in that game.
I don't think that was 2020.
Or was it 4 touchdowns? Maybe it was 4 touchdowns he threw for.
It was 4 touchdowns. Let's see.
Wow, good job pulling that up, man. That's incredible, man. You guys are good. How do you is a Kleiman?
Yeah,
Dove Kleiman. Okay,
it was 2018.
Wow. Okay, so
long time
how many yards did he have?
He had. Okay, well, this only says 262.
Before touchdowns?
Yeah, 4 touchdowns, 262.
Oh, so I knew there was a 4 in there somewhere, so it wasn't 400 yards. Wow, that's okay. Wow. Raiders
yep, 262 yards.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's something. That's
145 rushing yards from Mostert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Damn. All right, but yeah, going back to the draft class, it was an ugly class aside from Purdy, who has blossomed into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think is not a stretch to say at this point. MVP finalist, and if he doesn't have that Ravens Monday night catastrophe with all those tips, I think he does win MVP. Because in my opinion, Lamar was the least impressive MVP campaign performance in a long time. Brock Purdy is much better. The story is much better. but that last game was just too late in the season to overcome. Matt, you have something to add?
Yeah, the last 49ers quarterback to throw for 400 yards was Jimmy Garoppolo in a Week 11 victory in 2019 against the Arizona Cardinals. He threw for 424.
Yeah, Cardinals.
That's right.
Wow.
Damn.
And that had been the most in a game since 1999, Week 13
Jeff Garcia
against the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, Jeff Garcia.
Yeah,
it's just not Kyle's style of football. If a quarterback's throwing for 40 yards,
ball.
Yeah, something's wrong. We must be down a lot.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a terrible stat to be excluded from. You know what I mean? So it's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah. TDP, I don't think is on the roster anymore, right? I'm pretty sure
he's not.
So he's gone. Danny Gray, injuries and was just kind of not active. And then I saw when Rashee Rice had his whole accident debacle, he was with him in the
Danny
car.
Gray was with him. Yeah,
they're both SMU products. The 49ers might cut ties just due to the simple fact that you're not producing on the field. It's not worth to put up with any off the field drama with you. We're going to move forward. It's already a crowded receiver room as it is. Burford was starting. Was he a quality starter? Probably not. He was good enough, but definitely needed to be upgraded on, in my opinion. Womack, like we talked about, didn't really. And Zekel's just best known for being Brock Purdy's roommate because the Silicon Valley is ridiculous expensive. So, yeah, there you go. That's for 2022. Let's pull up 2023 now.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Next season. Look at that. Look at how easy that was.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. First pick was in the 3rd round, 87th overall. Jair Brown, the safety. Jake Moody, 99th overall. 3rd round, excuse me. Cam Latu, 101st overall. Also a 3rd round. They had 3 third rounders.
Mm-hmm.
The next pick, Darrell Luter, 155th overall in the 5th round. Robert Beal, 173rd overall in the 5th round. D. Winters, 216th overall in the 6th round. Braden Willis, 247th overall in the 7th. Ronnie Bell, 253rd overall in the 7th. And Jalen Graham, 255th overall in the 7th as well. Matt, what are your initial thoughts on this class?
Initial thoughts, I think Jair Brown is a really good pick. He was able to step in right away for Talanoa Hufanga and really do a good job.
Jersey.
Did have a little bit of struggles at times later in the season. I think people kind of figured out where they could kind of bully him a little bit. I can't remember there was a game in particular where he really got picked on a little bit, and it kind of showed, but he did a good job recovering. Did a really good job overall. Jake Moody, up and down season for him as well, but you go to the Super Bowl, and when they needed it the most, he hit a 50-plus yard field goal in the Super Bowl. That was in the 4th quarter. That's pretty clutch. Just had some, I think, kind of concentration errors at times. I think that he would get in his own head. He had a habit of pushing the ball to the right, and the more he tried to not push the ball right, then the next time he would miss it left. And then when he tried to adjust again, it would be more towards the right. So just some adjustment. I think that kickers have a hard time in certain instances of adjusting to the NFL because of the hash width. I think Moody, who kicked a lot of field goals at Michigan, had to kind of adjust to that. The rest of the draft, D. Winters looks like he could be a guy that could play. That's going to be a rotational type guy for a while. Everybody else is kind of like meh. And I like Ronnie Bell, but looking at this wide receiver room, I think he's on the bubble. I don't know if Ronnie Bell makes this team just with as much talent as they have in the wide receiver room now. It's going to be really hard for him to do so. He's going to be competing for that last spot if he gets a spot at all. That's for sure. So overall, just kind of a decent pick considering they didn't have a 1st or 2nd round pick. I think their 2 third rounders are going to be on the team for a long time. And then beyond just D. Winters, you hope that Darrell Luter kind of, develops a little bit. And beyond that, it's just not a lot.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the third round pick here and give you guys a little hot take. I think Cameron Latu by week 5 will become tight end 2. on this team.
I wouldn't be sorry. He missed the entire season because he had a meniscus injury, right? And they stashed him on IR, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So you guys are going to see no years accrued for him over there. But I will say this, in the little bit that we got to see of him, he runs really good routes. He just drops a shit ton of passes, right? So while you're sitting there and you're nursing this meniscus and all that stuff, you should work on your hands. If he can catch passes, the route running is there. This guy I know everyone's like, oh, it's going to be Braden Willis. It's going to be Braden Willis. I see this guy as a blocker. That's all I see him as. And I'm sorry to say that. I know the numbers and all that stuff from the combine and all that, but listen, you either have it or you don't when it comes to running. I don't know that Braden Willis has it, but Cameron Latu does. He just has to start holding on to the passes. So keep an eye out on him. And obviously my favorite pick in this entire draft is Jersey's own Jair Brown, right? So I'm going to go with him as a star of this draft class. Now, obviously, Jake Moody's going to be the MVP of the draft class because he's going to lead the team in scoring every single year from here forward, right? But he's going to be a big guy there. I am in complete agreement with Matt. Ronnie Bell's on the bubble. It's kind of cool to see, Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray fighting it out with Trent Taylor for the last wide receiver position on the team. And one of these two should make it. If Trent Taylor makes this roster, we are in trouble. I don't care. He shouldn't make this team. Jalen Graham, it's like, what? I don't even know. D. Winters showed flashes, can fill in if we need him to. Robert Beal is a guy that, is going to hopefully push a guy like Drake Jackson. This is the year of competition, right? This is what we want to see. Someone opposite of Nick Bosa has to step up. These outside linebackers / defensive ends, these pass rushers are going to have to show and prove. So I like that the Niners go out and they get a guy like him, and then they say, okay, now this is who you're competing with. Step up and prove right now. I like that. Use these guys against each other the best you can. So it's not a terrible draft. And by the way, a lot of people are really high on Darrell Luter. What's up with that? Where does that come from? What have people seen that I haven't seen? Can someone tell me? I'm not even kidding. Like, please help me.
No idea. Potential, I guess. No idea.
But based off of what'd you see at South Alabama that like has you guys hyped about him? I don't know. I saw it as just another pick.
Yeah, I kind of do too. It's just, again, 5th round, you're just kind of going for like traits guy, right? You get your brief little interviews. Maybe he was in on a top 30 visit or something like that, or something, right? They saw him somewhere and they were like, oh, this looks interesting. Like, we don't have anything else. Let's maybe give it a shot. And I don't know, man.
Is it just a 5th round lore?
A lot of it is the 5th round lore. I think a lot of it is fans thinking that everybody that the 49ers draft are going to be contributing, or anybody that's on the 49ers roster. I mean, y'all remember little AB, right? Trent Sherfield was going to be the next Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Good
and then he turned out to be ass. So, again, we all have high hopes for anybody that walks through that door, because just like any other fandom, we think that, hey, if they're playing for the 49ers, man, they got to have something, right? And I think that's just what's happening with Darrell Luter. We just want him to be good. And we know that for a while we've needed a corner to kind of step up. Ever since we lost, I'm blanking on his name. No. The slot corner, K'Wan Williams.
K1.
Ever since K'Wan Williams left, we've been looking for that guy to kind of fill that void. And Darrell Luter is somebody that it's like, oh, okay, like maybe he could do that. And I don't know. Mm-hmm. I do agree with you about Cameron Latu. You don't need your knee to sit in a chair and use the jugs machine to catch passes. So if he hasn't been working on his hands, what's he doing? But I would expect that he makes an impact this year for sure. One would hope, right?
And I will say this to be fair to all the guys drafted 2022 and forward, right? This is a Super Bowl ready win now team. So the roster spots, the opportunities are slim to none. So we shouldn't expect a lot from these guys, barring significant injuries at your position, like multiple injuries at your position. We shouldn't expect these guys to come in here and, have all pros or Pro Bowl stats with this team and being built the way that we are. So these are all rotational guys where you're drafting for the future, right? So it's going to be like all these names on this list here outside of Jake Moody are going to be when we can't afford blank, you're going to have to fill in. That's what all of this is supposed to be about. When we can't afford either Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, that's when you're going to have other guys like D. Winters step up and really show out. Braden Willis, when we, George Kittle's still here, but what's going to happen later on? Or what happens if we lose a guy like Brandon Ayuk to contract negotiations? All right, Ronnie Bell, you got to give us something for a couple of seasons like that. These are those guys. Everybody drafted after that is going to be all about replacing guys who are pricing themselves out of the 49ers range.
Yeah. Who had the question here? Mark Cisneros, why is Graham listed as a safety?
He was a safety in college, and they converted him to a linebacker in the NFL because he was a tweener size.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, it's a little too early to tell on this draft class. It's the second to most recent, obviously. But I think you guys said it all. Brown looks promising. Moody, although up and down, certainly has the leg and has the guts to be able to kick in big game scenarios. I'm excited to see Latu. I agree with you, Mike. For some reason, everybody just immediately assumed Braden Willis is the better tight end of the two, with really before either of them took a snap. And Ronnie Bell certainly appears to be on the outside looking in. I saw somebody in the chat said, here we go, Mark again, Niners should call Harbaugh and offer Bell for a pick because if he gets waived, Harbaugh is 100% putting in a claim for him for a Michigan product there in Ronnie Bell. But we'll see. Obviously, looks like the 49ers will lean on D. Winters possibly to fill the hole that Dre Greenlaw will leave until he gets back. I know they signed Devondre Campbell, but Nick Sorensen, the new DC, mentioned D. Winters multiple times when asked about how they will fill the hole at linebacker until Dre Greenlaw's healthy. So an interesting draft class nonetheless. Let's get into the last draft class. Although there's not much we could say because none of these players have taken a snap, it's still interesting just to review it and see how the 49ers draft philosophy has changed from 2017, 7 years later, to 2 months ago last month when they drafted these players here. So their first overall pick was the 31st pick in Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver. 64th overall pick, they drafted Renardo Green, DB. 86th overall pick, they drafted Dominic Puny in the third round. 124th overall, they drafted Malik Mustafa in the fourth. 129th overall, they drafted Isaac Grendo in the fourth as well, running back. And 135th overall, drafted Jacob Cowing in the fourth as well, wide receiver. And 215th overall, they drafted offensive lineman Jarrett Kingston in the sixth. And last pick, 251st overall, linebacker Tatum Bethune in the seventh. Matt, thoughts on this class? Again, they haven't taken a snap, so it's not like we have any crazy
have not taken a snap. I will say this is the first 49ers draft class where outside of maybe a little bit of controversy surrounding the Ricky Pearsall pick, this draft by and large pleased the 49ers fan base. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. Every year before this, it was like, damn, we should have had this guy off. We only would have drafted this guy. And by and large, again, other than Ricky Pearsall, where a lot of people think they should have drafted a tackle, and to me, I get the Pearsall pick. Like Mike talked about, you're drafting for, the 49ers are good. You're drafting for guys you can't afford. I think Pearsall was a little bit of a hedge in case they needed to trade one of the wide receivers. They decided to keep all of them, and now you're left with a really, really good wide receiver room. But outside of that Pearsall pick, I don't know anybody that was mad about Renardo Green. Dominic Puny seems to be very popular. Malik Mustafa is definitely popular. Everybody was happy about that pick. Some people hem and haw about another mid-round running back, but Isaac Grendo is, 220 pounds, and he runs 4.3 something or whatever. There's a lot of physical tools about that. Jacob Cowing looks like a guy that they could actually use as a real returner and get that Richie James stink that they've had on him for 6 years out of the building. That was supposed to be Ray McLeod, but apparently he doesn't know how to dive on a muffed punt. and says playmakers make plays. Well, he playmaked his ass right out of San Francisco, and they need somebody that can do some work in that special teams. Maybe Jacob Cowing's that guy. And then, Jarrett Kingston and Tatum Bethune are like kind of, hopeful depth pieces, right? You want them to come in and hopefully they stick on the roster. I think everybody else you could see as being some sort of contributor at some point early. Isaac Guerrero to me is kind of maybe a signal that maybe Elijah Mitchell's going to be gone. We'll see. We don't know anything about these guys. As we've said, they've all yet to take a snap in the NFL. I will say the one thing that gives me hope about Ricky Pearsall is that NFL players, particularly CJ Stroud, was pissed that the 49ers got him. And when you got a quarterback that's mad that you took a playmaker like that, then the guy can play. And he played college football with two of the higher drafted quarterbacks in recent years, Anthony Richardson. And previous to that, he played with another one. It wasn't CJ Stroud.
Wasn't it the second overall pick this year? Jaden Daniels?
Yes.
At Arizona State, right?
Yes, that is correct. I couldn't remember the other one. But yeah, Anthony Richardson at Florida, and he played with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. So, I mean, he didn't have, blow your mind stats, but when NFL players are like, damn, that's a good pick. When Ayuk, in the middle of a contract negotiation with the 49ers, texts John Lynch and goes, hey, not going to lie, that's a fire pick. You know what I mean? Like,
wait. But you took that as like a compliment?
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm about to stir the pot. You finish your thoughts. I'll come back to that.
Listen, I think that if you are in the middle of a contract negotiation, you don't say fire pick, because if if you get that, gives them, I think, would give them a little bit of leverage, right? Like,
gives who leverage?
Thinks that we got the front office. It doesn't give Ayuk any leverage, because if he thinks for real it's a fire pick, if he thinks it's a good pick, then he knows, oh, damn, dude, are they drafting my replacement? You know what I mean? If he thought he was Buns, then he wouldn't say nothing, I don't think. And he's not going to lie about it, but I don't know. Why do you think it's the other way, Mike?
I think it was like that's how y'all going to do me? Cool. Like you compliment someone after they kind of throw a subtle jab at you that you think that they don't think you noticed. Like that's how I took it, right? So it's like, we're in contract negotiations and you're going to take a wide receiver in the first round. Okay, I see you. Cool. Good job. Like that's how I felt that.
I could see that in a vacuum, but the CJ Stroud reaction makes me think that it's genuine, because of the other players that reacted the way that they did, saying, hey, San Francisco got a good player. That makes me think what BA said was actually like legit and on the level. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. That's fair. And I do think that Brandon Ayuk respects Pearsall's game. So let me be clear with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I feel like they
were teammates too.
Him.
No, they were teammates, man. He's not going to throw shade at a teammate. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. I like it.
Mike, what are your thoughts on this class?
So I want to go on record and say that all three of us were calling this kid Malik Mustafa, where it's actually pronounced Malik, which is weird to me.
Oh, okay.
I know multiple people with the name spelled the same exact way, and they all say Malik.
Yep.
I don't know how you get Well, never mind. I'm not gonna say it's cool. So all due respect, they pronounce it Malik. That's cool. I walked away from this draft pretty excited, other than the 6th round pick in Jarrett Kingston. I wasn't quite sure, what was going on with that and where they expect him to play or how he fits into the scheme here. But it's all about depth. This 49ers offensive line is going to have a major overturn in the next season or two. You have no idea who's going to be here in any of those positions. In 2 years, none of these guys are going to be under contract. So it's going to be like, all right, what are we doing as far as the starters go? So you got to go out there and start getting depth. You got to start getting guys with system familiarity. And in worst case scenario, we can put you in, and at least you know what we want to do. Now, can you physically do it? So I just, I didn't quite understand that one. Probably the biggest question mark on the whole thing to me. But again, this is all about depth. This entire draft class is all about depth. And if you can get any production from any of these guys this season, it's a win. That's the way I'm looking at it. A team that just came off of a Super Bowl, had a lead in overtime, and you bring back all of your starters except
Armstead.
Yeah, there you go. Except Armstead. But you go out there and you get a Malik Collins, right? So you kind of do a vet for a vet type of move there, right? I just don't know that these are guys that are looking to, you know what I'm saying? I don't know that these are guys that you're looking to insert immediately. So this was one of those things.
Can I just say that this is a W draft for me because they didn't draft any defensive linemen?
Not a single one.
That too.
I was getting so tired of that shit. I'm not gonna lie, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, first one without Adam Peters.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Ooh.
That's fair. And so this is going to be a huge referendum on what John Lynch actually is as a general manager. Yeah. But I do remember when this draft was leading up that people were mocking defensive tackles to the 49ers. And I was like, I will lose my fucking mind.
Yeah. Which one of the drafts was it that they didn't move at all? Like they stayed pat at every one of their picks. Was it last year? Not this one that we're looking at. Was it the one before?
I think it was last year that they didn't move. All of that, like the back-to-back picks in the 6th were comp picks, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they didn't really have anything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I know it's been pointed out, but just noticing the difference in philosophy from 2017 till now, and where along that 7-year period things change, where they learn and went different. The main component that is the same in all of these picks is they were all 4 or 5 year starters. All of these players have an extensive college career, and they probably felt snake bitten by Trey Lance type picks, not just Trey Lance, but any other picks that only had a year or two experience. And they said, we want players that have a ton of experience under their belt. That way they're older. Maybe they're easier to adjust to the NFL and the fast pace of it. And we can plug and play immediately if need be. Now, it also comes with the trade-off of most of these players are 25, 26 going in as a rookie as opposed to 20, 21, 22. But I just needed to point that out because we do see a change in philosophy for the first time. And it seems like they made a concerted effort to only draft seniors in this class. I don't know if you guys had anything to add to that, but I just think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that. Well, we noticed that. I won't just say I.
We talked about this previously. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was something that I also, took a huge note to. They want the grown man strength. They want the age. They want to, focus less on development and seeing who we can get some reaction from, sooner rather than later, and so that was a very, very good point that you pointed out here when we're going through this exercise here. I think it's a possibility that third round pick in Dominic Puny, if they put him in the right spot, could reap the most benefits and be one of the more game-changing picks in this entire draft.
Damn.
Listening to that guy talk, watching the sweat on his forearms at his first presser following OTAs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy sounded like he needed to blow his nose. He's out there working. He's busting his ass out there. And all he talks about was, one of the questions was, well, where do you prefer to play? I'm in the NFL now. I don't get to say things like that. Wherever they want to put me is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to try my best. I loved hearing that from him in his presser. Like that shit gave me chills, because you have guys who have no problem saying, I prefer to play here, but if they need me, blah, 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 blah. My preferences don't exist right now. I understand I got drafted, but I haven't earned anything. Put me where you want me to go, and I'm there. Like, I loved hearing that from that kid. Yeah. And keep in mind, I'm the guy that just said about 15 minutes ago, I hate the picking a player and moving them all over the place. That's how much that meant to me to hear from Dominic.
Yeah. It's impressive.
Back, one other area where the 49ers really like beyond just the experience they really like high-end players in the short shuttle.
Oh,
There's fast short shuttle guys.
Mm-hmm.
So change of direction and being able to quickly get after a ball carrier, or run a route or change a direction in a Kyle Shanahan offense, and the 49ers defense is very important to them and has been pretty consistently.
Yeah, it's a great fact to point out. I'd say outside of Pearsall, the three that I'm the most excited on are Green, Mustafa, and Cowing. I obviously want to see Garendo in this offense. His speed is deathly, but I think Cowing, they kind of make him sound like just a speed option and a Danny Gray type replacement. Watching his film, it looks like the dude can run just about every route. Like, he looks like a complete receiver. And there were games he just completely took over in the last couple of years at Arizona State. I think Arizona he was at. And it was just really impressive. And obviously, will that translate? That remains to be seen. I'm extremely excited just to see that addition to the receiver room and a player that they got in the 4th round. So those are a couple players I'm extremely excited to see. Green, that was one of our guys, Stewart's like big time draft crushes, and just him going off in the group chat about how happy he was the 49ers drafted him was really good to hear, because he's usually got a solid track record on scouting these players, and seeing just the highlights of him locking down, was it Neighbors at LSU and a few other top rated receivers that went really high in this year's class. Very impressive. Very impressive. And if the 49ers can get another starting corner in this draft and Renardo Green to add to Diamador Lenore and how am I forgetting Ward, that's a hell of a trio. Ward, Lenore, and Green. If they're all top tier corners, that's a nice trio of starting corners for the 49ers. So I'm very excited with this class. Excited to see where we'll be in a year's time looking back on this. Before we move on, I just wanted to say I saw a tweet from Scott Hansen that made my goosebumps on my arm go up. It's been 15 Sundays since the Super Bowl, and we are 15 Sundays away from the first game. So we're getting close. We're getting very
Almost
close.
there,
We're literally
Almost
halfway
there.
through the offseason today. So we appreciate everybody rocking with us and sticking through it, because it can be extremely draining getting through this 6-month period until we get back to football. Any final thoughts on this draft class, guys? Or do you think we everything that needs to be said is out there?
I think it's going to be interesting to see who contributes early and who doesn't. I know a lot of people are saying Kyle doesn't trust rookie wide receivers, so Ricky Pearsall isn't going to do much, but Ayuk and Debo both produced their rookie years. So I think that Pearsall has an opportunity to take over the wide receiver 3 spot from Jawan Jennings, just because he's going to offer more in the short yardage areas on 3rd down. Not that 3rd and Jawan isn't great, but I think that if you can get him in space in a slot role, or put him outside and let Debo get open, I think that'll be a little more beneficial for the team overall.
Yeah. 3rd and Jawan is overrated.
I think Jawan is awesome. It's fun to like that catch that he had in the NFC Championship game was awesome. Don't get me wrong. Or was it the divisional game? Was it the Packers game that he had?
Packers game, yeah.
Okay, so the divisional game against the Packers. He's slow. He's slow feet. It's like somebody pointed out, he had 19 catches in the regular season. I want somebody who's a little more versatile, and I think that he's very limited in what he does, and that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're like wide receiver 4. But you can't have a 3rd wide receiver that can't, get out there and do everything that you need of him to do. And I think Ricky Pearsall has a chance to do that. So
that's the difference between a 49ers wide receiving core and a Cincinnati Bengals wide receiving core, right? Like that's the difference right there. And I want to correct myself. I said 3rd and Jawan is overrated. I don't think Jawan Jennings, the player, is overrated. I think we have him notched exactly where he is. But this whole, he's a 3rd down machine, that part is overrated. You can't name a wide receiver 3 or 4 on the 49ers in the last 7 years since they've been here, including Trent Williams, that wasn't the 3rd down option that converted. All he does is catch 1st downs. Yeah, no shit. Trent Williams, check. I mean, I'm sorry, Trent Taylor, check. Jawan Jennings, check. Kendrick Bourne,
Yep.
check. When we got to cover Kittle and Ayuk and Samuel, you better catch the 3rd and 7s.
Mm-hmm.
You better catch the 3rd and 5s, right? Otherwise, what the fuck are you here for?
True.
Now, if your 3rd option or your 4th option is a 1st round talent, what are you doing to the that's the game changer right there. So it's not about hate on Jawan Jennings. It's I respect, appreciate, and accept everything he's done for the 49ers thus far. But bro, where's the separation between you and the guy behind you?
Yeah.
You know, the reason why people say Ronnie Bell has promise isn't because of how good he is. It's like, oh well, you know, he could probably take that job.
Yeah, exactly. It's the amount of distance between what Jawan Jennings offers as a floor player. You know what I mean? Like Ronnie Bell is pretty close to what Jawan Jennings offers. No, and this is that Trent Sherfield example, the Darrell Luter thing that we talked about earlier. Everybody who watches this team pumps up and thinks players are better than they actually end up being. You know what I mean? Very few instances of players where they end up outperforming expectations. Obviously, the most recent example that I can think of is Brock Purdy. You know what I mean? Like where he's just been far and away. And it was weird because he was the one player that the 49ers fan base doubted for longer than any other player. They were just like, I don't know if he's really the guy. I don't know if he's this. It's Kyle Shanahan offense. Anybody can play quarterback. We can thank Jimmy Garoppolo for that, I suppose. Mm-hmm. You know, this offense made Jimmy Garoppolo look like a serviceable starter. Just ask the Raiders. They paid him to be one, and he didn't even make it an entire season. You know, they've done that with a couple of guys. I mean, Minnesota's going to find out this year that Sam Darnold ain't in it either. So J.J. McCarthy, I bet you will be starting before week 5. And might start week 3 after the 49ers go up to Minnesota and get their first victory there in however long. Mm-hmm. But I do think that you're on to something with Jawan Jennings where he's just limited. I remember when he was drafted, I was like, man, I watched him at Tennessee, slow feet. I thought, and actually, Zach, you probably remember this, when they drafted Jawan Jennings, I was like, you know, if they can give him a ham sandwich and a workout program, he would be a dynamic tight end too.
Tight end.
I literally was like, he should be a tight end.
That part right there.
Yeah.
He's a willing blocker, right? He's got the height. He's
obviously
the tallest.
The construction helmet or whatever that they were doing this year.
Come on. Yep. He's got all of it. Convert this dude to a tight end and put all this shit to bed for us, please.
Yes. Then tight end 2 becomes moot, and you don't need to develop a 3rd or a 6th round rookie pick or whatever into one, because you got a guy 3rd and Jawan that you can send in there that will block, that will not just be like, you know, when you have somebody, you know, coming in. What's the guy's name that we signed, the free agent in 2022?
A tight end?
Yeah, he was like a vet that we signed.
Oh.
The one that didn't chip Hassan Reddick well enough.
That was Dwelly, wasn't it?
No.
I know who Matt's talking about, though.
Yeah.
He played for Washington. He was the older guy.
Was it Logan Thomas? No?
No. Someone in the chat. Tyler Croft.
Cincinnati.
There you go. Thank you, Mark.
Cincinnati.
But we knew when Tyler Croft was coming in the game, that motherfucker wasn't catching a pass.
Yeah.
He was in there to block. You know what I mean? So you have a guy in Jawan that if you can get him a little bit meatier, a little bit weightier, and use him at the tight end spot, that you don't know, because he's such a good blocker already at the wide receiver spot. You don't know, is he in here because it's a running play, or are they actually going to pass? Because they would use him as a receiver at the tight end spot. So they have an option there. But
that'd be interesting. That would be very interesting.
I said that shit when they drafted him. They shouldn't convert him to tight end because I thought his feet were too slow to be an effective wide receiver. That's kind of proven true in my defense.
All right. Last topic we have for the show tonight is who the 49ers' current rival is moving forward. Obviously, they face every team they beat in the playoffs this upcoming season. The Rams and Seahawks, I know the Brock Purdy hasn't lost to either team, but that Rams rivalry is still there. Obviously, they're divisionals rivals. But then you add in the Packers, heated divisional round, and the Lions, a hell of a championship game that the 49ers won at, basically the last minute with a few minutes to spare. Which of these teams would you guys say? And this all was sparked by, and I'll play the video, Keyshawn Nixon of the Packers saying that they, the reason they have almost perfect attendance in OTAs is because they feel like they let the 49ers off the hook, to which Diamador Lenore quoted and responded, "Who? Y'all let off the hook? Like, come on. Let's be real. Who we talking about here? Who did you let off the hook?" So
And he put the @ baby. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
With the ear emoji. Let's hear it. To which he did not hear it because Nixon, did not respond. So let me play the clip and then we'll get into it.
Many people here, for what is essentially still a voluntary workout. That's nice to see.
I mean, I feel like we let a team off the hook last year in the playoffs, and we know that. And everybody on this team here for a mission, and we ready to win a Super Bowl. So we all here locked in, and it showed that we ain't nothing to play with.
Many people.
So if anybody, he should be saying that to his own quarterback who decided to throw the game away with 3 timeouts on first down, close to midfield with roughly a minute left. I mean, there was no reason for Jordan Love to force that ball to the middle of the field on first down with 3 timeouts with a minute left when they only needed a field goal. If I remember correctly, it was like 25-22 or something weird like that. So who would you guys say, taking that into consideration, there has been some chirping going back and forth between Wisconsin and Santa Clara here. Who would you say is the current 49ers rival? Matt, we can start with you.
I'm going to say really they don't have any rivals. They have sons and they have fathers. All right. They've sunned the Cowboys. They've sunned the Packers. They have sunned the Rams the last couple of years. I mean, they've sunned the NFC West for the last 2 years. But then big old daddy Chiefs, right? Big old daddy Ravens, big old daddy Buffalo Bills. They can't seem to get past those guys. In terms of like back and forth rivalry, I don't really see one for the 49ers right now. They don't have that. The Lions, I think, have probably the most potential to be that. And if we're talking pure hatred, it has to be 49ers Cowboys, because even the players are like, fuck the Cowboys. You know what I mean? So I think that would be it. But in terms of year in, year out, oh shit, the 49ers are going to have to go against this team. You know, we talked about it when the 49ers were in a down period and Russell Wilson and the Seahawks just beat our ass every year. It can't be a rivalry if one team never wins, right? So Cowboys can't technically be a rivalry because they don't beat us. The Packers don't beat us, right? Just ask Aaron Rodgers. He had to run to the AFC to try to get to a Super Bowl. You know, the Rams haven't beat us since, Jimmy Garoppolo. I guess that it could be them. They beat us in the NFC Championship game when Jimmy Garoppolo decided to throw. I don't know what the fuck Jimmy was doing. I kind of wiped that out of my memory, but even then, not really. It's hard to say. I just don't. I think that they have teams that they struggle with, right? They have monsters that need to be slayed, and then they have people that they're able to keep out of the castle gates. So the Chiefs are the monster that has to be slain at this point. And, they've lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl twice. There was a revenge game that we could have had. It was, when Brock Purdy first threw his first pass in the NFL or whatever, they got absolutely demolished in that game. I don't think they actually said rivalry. They don't actually have a rivalry at this point.
Let me add, I should have specified in the NFC, because yes, the Chiefs and obviously those teams have owned the Niners, but NFC rivals. Mike,
honestly, another potential I could see is Chicago, because Chicago beat us in Chicago in 2021.
This motherfucker.
I'm just saying they got Caleb Williams now. They got new people or whatever, and we play the fucking Bears every year for some reason. I don't understand why we play the Bears so much, but we play them like every fucking year. So maybe them.
Oh man,
Mike, did I take your shit, Mike? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. I was so ready. I said, listen. So the biggest rivalry, it's odd, ironic maybe that we played the Packers clip. Right. But the truth of the matter is there's 2 teams in that division that are more rivals than either the Lions or the Packers. Right. If we want to keep it a buck. Right. In the last 5 meetings between the Vikings and the 49ers, the 49ers have only won 3 of those games against the Vikings. So the Vikings got the win, Niners won 2, the Vikings got the win, the Niners lost. Right? That's how it goes.
Including last season, by the way.
Yeah, including last season. If you look at the Bears, their last 5 meetings is win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like that's how it's played out. So the rivalry is in that division, but neither one of those teams that we're discussing. Right? Those are the teams that, for whatever stupid reason, albeit whether backup quarterback, starting quarterback, whatever the situation is, those are the teams that we have the best back and forth with. Home, away, none of it makes a difference. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. Those teams come and they play, and then they battle this team really, really well. Those are the teams that we go back and forth against for some reason. Now, we want it to be, like what Matt said, the Lions. I feel like that can be a very healthy, good for the NFL. You got a defensive-minded coach against an offensive-minded coach, right? You got a grit and a grit and power and just will to win in the Lions, and you have a schematic and what's the word? Like data, not data. What do they call it? Analytics driven team in the 49ers to go out there. Like it's old school versus new school. It's smash mouth versus finesse. Those are the rivalries you want it to be, right? You want it to be the Lions, right? Or you want it to be someone in your division. But let's be honest. We're fighting a team in the mirror, and then the other 2 teams are trying to find their way right now. They're in the middle of rebuilds. There's nothing in the division here that says, oh, these guys are going to go back and forth. There's no team that you think are going to split with the Niners the next 3 seasons in a row. Like you just don't see it. So it's got to be the Bears for me. That's the team I was going to go with. Matt, good job, man. Way to pull that out at the end. I like that.
So I like that answer. That's like potential next rival. I'm interpreting this as like based off of what's happened already. I got to go with the Packers. I don't know. I do think it is the Packers is the closest thing the 49ers have to an out-of-division rival. Although, like Matt said, the 49ers haven't lost to them in a meaningful game in the last, 10 years. I mean, they lost, 2021, that, Week 3 game at home at Sunday Night Football. But other than that, I can't even think of a time where the 49ers lost to the Packers when it counted. But I just think the closeness of that game of the divisional round, the teams going at each other, players chirping, Jordan Love being a young quarterback, Brock Purdy being a young quarterback. This could be something to where the teams are forced to go through each other for the next couple of years. It's interesting that week 10 or week 11, whatever week it was, ass whooping they put on the Eagles completely removes them from this conversation. Neither of you even mentioned Philadelphia. Do you guys find that strange? If we were talking about a year ago at this time, Philadelphia would have been the number 1 option, but now as we see in 2024, they're not even on the radar, right? You wouldn't consider Philly a rival?
No.
I think we mop the Eagles anytime we play them with Kyle Shanahan. I'm sorry. There's nothing about the Philadelphia Eagles team that I believe in, bro. When you interview a head coach candidate and then hire him as your offensive coordinator while the head coach is still there that you hired over him, I mean, their best days are behind them. I'm sorry. That division is that team is just they're just waiting to fall apart. That's all that is. So I just don't see it.
All right. That's funny. And I feel like a lot of these content creators are forgetting how Philly's season ended last year. They lost 5 of the last 6 regular season games and then got whooped by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks of all teams. And for some reason, I keep seeing projections of them going 14-3, 15-2, 13-4, number 1 seed in the NFC. It's I'm sorry, what dramatically changed in Philadelphia in the past 3 months to allow them to be this, crazy team? It's not realistic, and I think they're going to be falling apart.
I pulled some numbers here. So the 49ers and Cowboys history, I'm talking about all time. The record is 20-19-1 in favor by 1 game for the 49ers. Okay? You can call that a rivalry. That's pretty dope. It's actually pretty close for all of them. Packers, Green Bay leads all time. All right, 38-34-1. And believe it or not, in the last 5 games, the Packers have won 2. Niners, I believe this is only regular season. It's only regular season. I'm not counting postseason, just so you guys are clear here. All right, so the Niners won. The Niners won January 2024. The Niners won January 2022. Packers won 2021. Am I reading this right? Yeah, Packers won 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Packers won in 2020, and then the Niners won in 2020. We played them twice in 20. Oh, what? Oh, that's postseason. Okay, yeah, but the record is what I said it was as far as regular season. 38, 34, and 1 in favor of the Packers. Here's the Bears. Check how close this is. Bears all time. Niners lead the series 35, 33, and 1.
Damn.
And then, yeah. And then the Vikings, man, the Niners lead 25, 24, and 1. They're right there. It's neck and neck. Yeah, it is neck and neck. So that's good. That's good stuff for the NFL right there.
I saw in the chat somebody brought up Falcons with Kirk Cousins. That could be a new. I'd say it's on par with Chicago as far as possible rival moving forward, but it hasn't developed in anything yet. But I think that's going to do it for tonight's show, guys. We went through every single draft class under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, reviewed them, seeing how their philosophies have changed 7 years, in and what's changed, who worked out, who didn't. Talked about some cheeseheads chirping in Wisconsin, who's going to be the biggest rival moving forward. We appreciate all you guys rocking with us. Like the chat said, 11 Sundays until preseason football is back. We just got to get through June and July. Hall of Fame game is August 1st. So it's literally the first day into August, we get some preseason football back. Mike, let the folks know where to find you. I'm sure they already know, but let the folks on our channel know where to find you at. Yeah.
Guys, man, listen, I am funneling all traffic to the Patreon page, guys. Patreon.com/NB9ERS. It's going up over there frequently, and I am getting to it. So please head on over there. Show some support for your boy. We have a free tier. We have a $1 tier. We got a $5 tier, $10 tier, and a $20 tier. All of you guys get original content. So please get on over there and enjoy. Thank you very much. Bang. It's right there. Patreon.com/NB9ERS.
That's right. All of our handles for X are on the screen. Go follow us. Make sure you follow RGS Pod as well on X. And Matt, please carry us out.
Absolutely. This was a great show. Loved going over the draft classes. It was fun having you guys here. Hopefully these rookies can contribute this year, and hopefully we can build more rivalries because Lord knows we need some more fun games. 6 times in primetime this year. Second only to the Jets, surprisingly enough. Kind of weird, but, Aaron Rodgers still gets mileage. The Jets are on. The Jets have 7 primetime games.
How? I thought 6 was the cap.
That Brazil game.
Yes.
Oh, the Friday game.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
A Friday football game. How about that? Okay. Sorry.
Yep. Wild. Anyway, loved having you guys here. Mike, great job. Zach, great job as always. This was a super fun show. Thank you as always for joining us. We love having you here. We're going to be bringing you content each and every week. So with that being said, for Zach, for Mike, for myself, we love having you here, as always. And until next time, I'll wait till my face unfreezes to say this. Go Niners.